Welcome to the Mindful Fire Podcast. If you're enjoying the show, please leave a 5-star review on Apple Podcast. My dad will be so grateful. See you next time on the Mindful Fire Podcast.
Welcome to the Mindful Fire Podcast, a show about crafting a life you love and making work optional, using the tools of mindfulness, envisioning, and financial independence. I'm your host, Adam Coelho, and I'm so glad you're here. Each episode of the Mindful Fire Podcast explores these 3 tools through teachings, guided meditations, and inspiring interviews with people actually living them to craft a life they love. At its core, Mindful Fire is about creating more awareness and choice in your life. Mindfulness helps you develop self-awareness to know yourself better and what's most important to you by practicing a kind, curious awareness. Envisioning is all about choosing to think big about your life and putting the power of your predicting brain to work to create the life you dream of. And financial independence brings awareness and choice to your financial life, empowering you to make your vision a reality by getting your money sorted out and ultimately making work optional. And here's the best part. You don't have to wait until you reach financial independence to live out your vision. Mindful Fire is about using these tools to craft that life now on the path to financial independence and beyond. If you're ready to start your Mindful Fire journey, go to mindfulfire.org/start and download my free envisioning guide. In just 10 minutes, this guide will help you craft a clear and inspiring vision for your life. Again, you can download it for free at mindfulfire.org/start. Let's jump into today's episode. Matt, welcome to the Mindful Fire Podcast. I'm so glad to have you here.
Brother Adam, thanks, man. I'm excited to be here, ready to rock and roll today. So just really appreciating you. Thank you for the opportunity.
Yeah, it's great to have you. I was on your podcast a few months back, and I'll link my episode there in the show notes so people can check that out. But it's wonderful to have you on the podcast today. And I'd love to have you start by sharing with the audience a little bit about who you are, your journey, and what you're up to in the world.
What you need to know about me is I am a recovering perfectionist and a highly functioning workaholic, someone who has been overwhelmed, stuck in my own mind, stuck in my own way for the longest time, frustrated that things aren't always exactly perfect to the T that I may have wanted them. These have been the challenges that have plagued me. And I say plagued because they are challenges. And granted, they're not challenges where I don't have a house to live in, I don't have food on the table. So they're first world challenges. Nonetheless, if anyone out there is listening, ever feels that way, they're frustrated, they're overwhelmed, things don't go exactly perfect the way they want them. They are working themselves to the bone and they're tired at the end of the day. They don't have time for their dear loved ones. These are the people that I love to serve and coach in my professional business as an executive coach, where I coach recovering perfectionists and highly functioning workaholics to scale their business and keep it simple. A little bit about me personally is that I am a father of 3 lovely daughters that are 8, 6, and 4. And my sleep schedule is somewhat interrupted from time to time, if you parents out there can understand. I have an amazing wife, Julie, who is way out of my league. I think that she only got with me because I can make her laugh and I'm tall. And for whatever reason, that drew her to me. The laughter and the tallness. For those of you who see me on YouTube, opinions vary, but I believe I'm decent looking, right? But really where I shine is just being authentic and connecting with people and being very transparent. So those are some things about me that the audience would know. I have a podcast, the Eternal Optimist Podcast. So love to help people frame things that if they're ever just stuck in their own mind or having a real tough time inside, then I love to help them share some positive light and learn from the challenges. So those are a few things to kick things off today, Adam.
Sounds great. Tell me a little bit about your journey from the point where you were unaware of this perfectionism and recovering or high functioning workaholic.
Yeah.
Like, how did you first come to have that awareness? I think a lot of people are just running so fast, they don't even have the awareness that there's a problem, right?
Yeah.
So how did you first come to that, and how did that evolve?
I think back to a very specific moment in my life. I was 24 years old. I was an entrepreneur running a business. And I remember that I was burning the candle at all ends, Adam. And I remember it was on a Monday in the summer of 2001, 24 years old, that I woke up that Monday morning. I've got probably about 100 people in the sales force that are working with us. Probably got about 6 or 7 like full-time key employees in the organization. And I woke up and literally I was so exhausted that I could not get up. It was the first time in my entire professional career that I physically malfunctioned. My body would not work. I was seeing blurry. I couldn't get up. I was so exhausted. I had to call Kevin. And man, I'm so thankful for Kevin. I had to call Kevin and say, hey, I can't run the interviews today. I can't come in. I need a day off because I'm just so exhausted. And Kevin, for the life of man, he went in there, ran all his interviews. So incredibly grateful to him. But that day, I realized that I am trying to do everything myself because it's got to be done in this very specific way to this very high standard. And I cannot let anyone else do it. I've got to do it myself. And that was a great lesson to learn. I'm so glad I learned it at 24 because I don't know if I would still be around today, if I was still burning the candle like 80, 90 hours a week at work. If you look at another challenge that came from this workaholism, it was what cost me every relationship that I had in my 20s and early 30s, Adam, is that I would go so hard working. And this is a 6 or 7 day phenomena for me. This isn't 9 to 5. This is the entrepreneur life of wake up and then go to bed and you work in between those times. No vacations, nothing other than work hard. There may have been work hard, play hard in there too. But I look at it and I didn't spend any time personally with any of the few women that I dated in that time. And I feel bad for them. I should probably go and try to reconnect with all of them and say, I'm sorry, because I thought that I was doing what was best for the relationship by making a lot of money and working really hard, saving for the future. In reality, I was satisfying my own need to achieve, accomplish, and do things on my terms the way I wanted them. I wanted to be in control. And the way that perfectionism shows up is that we have this desire to control everything. And for me, that showed up in everything I did. So I may have said that I'm doing this for us, dear. And what was really happening was, if I'm willing to admit it now, is I was doing it for my need for status, for accomplishment, for achievement, to look good in my father's eyes. That was what was really driving me. And until someone pulled the veil back and said, Matt, you are the cause of every challenging and every relationship you're having. You are the one that is the bottleneck in your business. Until you let go of that perfectionism, you're going to keep having this challenge over and over again in your life. And that is what permeated my relationships in my 20s and early 30s, Adam, is that perfectionism and highly functioning workaholic.
Yeah, that's one that sounds exhausting, and it clearly was exhausting. I resonated with what you said about you saw it as the right thing to do, like that you were actually showing up and investing your energy in making it. And I like have that feeling sometimes because I feel like I'm very much driven by achievement and words of affirmation and all of the praise and that kind of thing. So I enjoyed like doing things like this, like the side hustle and the podcast and all these things. And I sometimes think that it's like I'm doing this to set us up for the future. But in reality, it's not really earning that much money right now, or hopefully that will change soon. But also, we don't need the money because we have 2 full-time jobs and we do just fine and we save and live within our means. So what really is it adding? And so that's to say that there are other benefits, but I think there needs to be a little bit more structure around it, because otherwise it can just be on my mind all the time and cause me to not be present when I'm with my kids or my wife, because I'm thinking about, oh, how am I going to write that podcast pitch email? Or how am I going to do this? Or what might this look like?
Yeah. You're really connecting with me. And I bet many of your listeners, probably all your listeners. And this idea that when is enough? We have this desire to go and achieve, accomplish, to be something that you just said it. If you're meeting financial needs and you're saving a little bit, then where do I go next? Do I go and keep leaning into the podcast, leaning into my next book, leaning into my business, leaning into whatever at the expense of loving time with my wife, loving time with my kids? So my answer to that, or my thought around that, might be a question. And I think that's the thing, is what question can I ask that can help me to clarify what I want most? And I think the question that's coming to me right now, Adam, I'm curious what question might come to you. For me, it's how might I achieve and be fully present as a loving husband and dad at the same time? So how do I get better at what I do, or more efficient at what I do? Or how might I prioritize things more effectively so that I can achieve and be present for my wife and for my kids? And I don't think I've always been that. I think it's been business first and family gets what's left over. And many of us as entrepreneurs can connect around that. Many of us who are stressed at the full-time career, W-2 jobs or whatever, but by that, we work and the kids or the family gets what's left over. So how do we shift that paradigm? And I feel that over the last 5 years, since joining the Front Row Dads and being a part of some groups I'm a part of with accountability, be able to shift that. No, it's all in the question that we're asking ourselves. Are we asking ourselves a question and envisioning a place where we can have what we want most? Because I think we want the same thing, Adam. We want to be the best dads, husbands.
Sure, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah. Is that in our daily question? Is that a part of our regular daily thinking routine to ask, how am I showing up as a dad today? How am I showing up as a husband today? How am I showing up as a member of this family today?
Yeah. Yeah. So you were saying like, it's about asking yourself questions to help you get more clarity on the situation. Is that what you were saying?
100%.
It's about the questions that we ask ourselves.
It's about the questions we ask ourselves. The question that is, if you envision it, that anything that happens in your life, it causes a response in you or a reaction in you. If the reaction or response is a question that serves you and that serves your priorities, then you figured out the game. If it's a statement that happens, then you are stuck in reactive mode in that present moment. Here's an example. I'm getting ready to take my children to school a couple weeks ago. We go out to the garage. I push the button on the garage door and it will not open. And darn it, some sound happened, Adam, where my garage door would not open and it snapped and it broke. And now my cars are stuck in the garage. And I unlocked the mechanism, try to lift the door. And long story short, was not able to lift the door by myself. So in that moment, I can get really frustrated, ticked off. My coaching calls are going to start late. My kids are going to be late to school. My wife is going to be inside. This is going to stress her out. I can think about and make statements in my mind about all this stuff that's going to happen. I can worry about it. Or because I've been practicing this with my coach, but with your help, when you were on my show, I've been envisioning how might I respond when something out of my control happens in front of my kids, right? So the second that garage door popped, it wouldn't open. My question becomes, how might I model this behavior for my kids and connect with them right now in this experience? Hey, kids, guess what? This is an opportunity for us to have an adventure together. So what do you want to do? I offered up some choices. We can order an Uber and take an Uber to school, all three of us together in the backseat of an Uber. Yeah, or we can make this a scavenger hunt and we can go to school together and walk to school. It's 1.25 miles to the school. We can walk to school together. Which would you prefer? So I gave them a chance for us to, either way, we're going to have an adventure together and do something together. Right? The alternative is, man, this sucks. This is horrible. And I'm so ticked off and everything's going to be late and I'm so stressed out. And instead, because the tripwire in Matt's brain through a lot of disciplinary work has become, how might I turn this into a chance to connect with my kids? How might I turn this into a moment to model something for the kids? Right? So it's back to that idea that when something adverse or challenging happens how might we program our minds to see first and think in terms of questions that serve us rather than statements that judge the situation and get us angry and stressed out? That might be the way that I would interpret and use mindful fire, is by practicing the art of thinking through questions when challenges happen.
Yeah, I like that a lot. I have not thought about that, but it makes a lot of sense. So it's just a matter of creating a practice and reminding yourself to go to questions when you notice yourself going to statements.
Yes.
And it's, I think of it much like any other practice with mindfulness, the training and the practice of mindfulness. I'm able to create some space between the stimulus and the response. So something happens and hopefully I take a deep breath and I give it some space before I start going into whatever mode. And it sounds like I could also add what question might be helpful here. And I really like that. And back to your question you gave me, how can I achieve and be present for my family? I think that, yeah, there's certainly, it's just creating some boundaries, right? Like creating some time in the day, carving out some time, or what I was telling you before, I'm going to be taking off a day each week over the next several weeks. I have a lot of vacation days to use. And also I want to invest in this program that I'm investing in. Financially, I want to invest time and energy. And the best way to do that and to achieve in that way is to have that time when my son is at school, the nanny is here with the baby, and I would normally be doing my normal Google work, but I can take a day off and I can do that. And what I also love about that is it's an opportunity for me to practice what I preach, right? And I'm encouraging people and going to be encouraging people more as I go forward to really design their ideal day. Because my whole thing is you don't have to wait to financial independence to live the life that you want. You can design that ideal day and then just like take a day off and live that day. And so that's what I'm going to be doing here. So it's like serving multiple purposes. But when my son gets off school, I'm not going to think about work at all. I'm not going to think about the side hustle at all. I'm just going to go and play with him and have fun and go do something cool. And then, yeah, it's achieving that question.
Oh, I love what you just said.
Back to achievement.
Yeah, I really resonate with the idea of the design of the ideal day. Because if we don't, just think about the consequence. If we don't design the ideal day, guess what happens? Whatever ends up happening becomes whatever it is. So we get into this reactive mode where we wake up, we grab a cup of coffee, out the door fast, kiss a baby, hug your wife, go to work, come home end of the day, and then go straight to dinner, and then go straight to TV, put the kids down, TV, relax, bed. And that might be a day, roughly, how a lot of people live it. No judgment, by the way, if anyone lives that day. I've lived that day a number of times.
Sure,
and if there is an ideal day out there, what might that look like? And the idea, what might it look like for you? And here's the exercise for the listener at home. Both you and I can keep doing this as well, Adam. It's writing down what might that ideal day look like. That question may be inaccessible for some people because it sounds like an overwhelming challenge sometimes to create an ideal day. So I might just start with, if you could design or engineer the first 10 minutes of your day, what would the first 10 minutes of an ideal day look like on a regular Friday for you, for example? And for me, I would love to wake up on a day, like a Friday. And the first thing I do when I get up is I go in the bathroom, I brush my teeth. I like to get that fresh feeling. Because for me, once I brush my teeth, I feel like I'm really awake and alive for the day. So I go in there, I brush the teeth. And this is like a 1.5 or 2 minute thing to brush your teeth. The ideal day for me is to wake up, go in there and brush my teeth. And when I'm doing it, I'm really just present and cool and at peace with it. And if anybody really resonates the idea of how do you stay present, cool, and at peace when you start your day, one way might be take brushing your teeth as an example, or drinking a cup of water, or going downstairs, reading the paper, or stepping outside, whatever it is. first minute of that first thing you do when you wake up, do it mindfully. Wait a second, Matt, what are you saying? That doesn't sound like you're saying that much. It may not seem like I'm saying much. When you start to practice mindfulness, the first minute of brushing my teeth, do it mindfully. Feel that carpet or rug underneath your feet. Feel your body acclimating in your, whatever your pajamas look like, or if you're just sleeping shirtless, feel that air in your bathroom, on your body. Look yourself in the eye, in the mirror as you're coming alive. Feel the bristles on your teeth. Do the first minute of that first thing. Do it mindfully. And then do that, commit to doing that every day for the first 10 days. And it can literally transform the way that you start your day, to do that first thing mindfully for 1 minute. That's the exercise. That's the challenge. Oh, and by the way, I didn't mention this in the beginning. I maybe should have had a disclaimer. This is going to be very challenging. It's going to be hard because you're going to feel like nothing's happening. Why am I doing this? You're going to feel like this is pointless. I'm already brushing my teeth. I'm already getting up. Why would I do it mindfully? What does it even mean? On the other side of that, here's the advantage or the benefit, is you're teaching yourself how to be present. And it takes reps, man. It takes discipline to do that. When you can learn to be present, there is a level of inner peace and joy and happiness that you can find in anything that you do when you learn how to do things mindfully. This is how it all starts. In the first 1 minute of whatever action you do in the first 10 minutes of your day.
Yeah, I love that. And I think you're preaching to the choir, right? On this one.
Yeah.
This is a receptive crowd
Amen.
to that idea, right? Hopefully this is a receptive crowd to this idea. But I really like that specificity, right? The first thing that you do it mindfully, because it sets up the rest of the day for that, right? If you start your day, like I often do, jumping out of bed, running to make sure that my son, my 4-year-old, doesn't wake up my 10-month-old, that's a different experience. It's a very different experience. And having my son as my alarm clock since he was born, probably not the most mindful or useful approach. So I really like this idea of just starting mindfully. And one thing that I know both of us have done, or you do, and I have done to varying degrees, is the miracle morning. And we can talk a little bit more about that. The miracle morning thing, I was doing that. Love the concept, love the book, did it for a while. Then my son was born and all went to hell.
Yes.
And I have not gotten back into it because he wakes up it was later. I could have been doing it, but now he wakes up at like between 5:30 and 6:30 every day, mostly before 6.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
this is a real challenge. This is tough because I'm with you too, because I remember I started the miracle morning after my first child was born. I started it in July of 2015. And after I started doing the miracle morning and I followed it to the T, I did all the savers, the SAVERS is how it talks about in the book. So I did all those things. And it took me about 60 to 90 minutes. And because our first child was one that went straight to the bottle, didn't do breastfeeding easily, went straight to the bottle, Julie and I shared midnight duties or 2 a.m. duties of feeding it. Now, to be fully transparent, Julie did that 90% of the time. And
I'm familiar.
When I would get up to try to do it, sometimes she'd already be up with it. Or sometimes she was so tired, she said, I can't do it. And I went and did it. But that's still out of every, let's say, 1 month of that, I probably did it, 3 or 4 times in a month. And she still got up every night and did it. So praise to her for that. But I still did that miracle morning because I was able to sleep. So I started doing it when my kids when my first child was alive. I started doing it and it didn't have too much of a negative impact on my miracle morning. Now, fast forward about 2 years later to 3 years later, my first daughter starts to come downstairs and I used to think she was interrupting my miracle morning time. And in reality, I had the frame that this is an interruption. I had the frame that now I'm not able to do this miracle morning stuff anymore. And now I have to parent. And that was it's an acceptable frame. Okay. Here's a different one to try on. The different one is now instead of this is a hindrance, I cannot do my miracle morning anymore. Now how my daughter helped me to elevate my miracle morning practice.
Right.
So she comes downstairs, I'm ready for it, and I've got a coloring book ready for her. I've got some kids book ready for her. I've got something over here that she can do that's complementary to while I'm doing my miracle morning. And we now both do it together. So in any given week right now, when my first daughter or second daughter come downstairs, 8 and 6-year-old come downstairs, they've got something they can do. And it's not, I have to parent them. My morning is now off or it's canceled or it's whatever. Now it is, I get to do this. They get to do that. And we all get to be present in the same room doing it together. It's not a hindrance anymore. It's an elevation of the experience with them. It's simply shifting the mindset to do it. And I feel that gives me a little bit of that mindful fire we're talking about is now I feel on point. When they come down, how does this elevate my family rather than how does this just make me have to stop doing what I wanted to do? It's totally different mindsets and it works great.
Totally different.
Yeah.
I love that. I've been thinking about that recently, actually, wanting to do that, right? Maybe not the whole miracle morning, but certainly I had my version of it, which was like doing like 10 minutes of yoga, meditation, affirmations, ideally journaling. That didn't always get in there. But yeah, those are the main things that I would do because when I was doing the full thing, and I would do a lot, but it would take 2 hours and I loved it. It was the best. And I was when I was doing that, I was in like the best shape that I've been in recent memory because I was just doing that little bit, but I was doing it every day and it felt great. And it started my day off. And so recently I've been thinking about how do I create the conditions for my son to entertain himself and do something while I'm doing it. Coloring books, certainly thought about that. Sometimes I've been saying I was going to sleep so early or so late watching the NBA playoffs. I come down and put a show on for him and then I would just like sleep on the couch next to him. But sometimes when I'm gotten better sleep, I will just go in the other room next door and meditate. And so we've got a little practice there, but I think you're totally right that it's all about the way that you frame it. And this is an opportunity for him to be involved in this and to start developing these habits and to see me doing these healthy habits. So I think it can be either or, and I've felt both for sure.
Yeah. If this is a place where a listener might take a note, here might be the note. This is what I call the pill and the peanut butter. And the pill and the peanut butter is, you know how when you have a dog and the dog will never take any medicine and you have a pill from the doctor and the vet, the dog won't take it. But if you stick it in that delicious peanut butter, put it on your finger, they will lick that thing off, man, and they will get better and they'll think the peanut butter is what's doing it. Right. So the pill and the peanut butter is what you just described. It's modeling for them, modeling for our kids, these habits, these routines, this thinking, this behavior. And if they come down, the first thing they see on my face is frustration that now they are interrupting me. That's not the way that I want them to see when they see their dad for the first time in the morning, right?
Or to start the day.
Yeah, or to start the day. So I think you're totally right. I think it's the framework we take to the table when they show up in the morning. It's how do we take our mindset from one of this is a hindrance, this is an annoyance, and shift it to this is an elevation? Or how do we take it to a place of I envision that when my children are 18, God willing, they graduate high school, if that's still a thing in 10 years, I think it will be. So they graduate high school and I envision that they say to me, Dad, I thank you for everything you've done to help me get this far. I envision that in their head, they're thinking, my dad really loves me and I can do whatever I put my mind to. And that's what my version of success looks like as a parent up until that 18 and 20-year-old framework for them is they think that way. You know, and if I'm envisioning that, then how do I reverse engineer that to happen in real life? And I feel that we've stumbled upon something that is instrumental in the process. It is how I show up every day to help them see, and I'm modeling for them these habits, these thinkings, these behavior patterns, so they can see this is what it looks like to be at peace with yourself, to work on being a better husband, a better father, a better human. That's what I'm modeling every day. I want them to catch me doing it. And especially when they come into the room or when they're present, I want them to catch me and see me modeling that. So yeah, I think that's important.
Yeah, I agree. They always say that they may not listen to what you're saying, but they're certainly learning from what you're doing.
If 100%, man, they're sponging up every
Yeah.
day,
Yeah.
every day. I'd love to talk about Miracle Morning, but I'd love to go back for a second because
Sure.
I struggle with this for some time, the idea of the alarm clock. And first, the idea of this is an alarm. When I think of alarms, I think of fire drills in school. I think of the whistle blowing if there's like a nuclear something happening. I think about what alarm is not a positive framework for me. And it's on all of our phones. We called them alarm clocks forever. I wouldn't call it that anymore. Now I look at what I have over here on my phone, and now it's not alarm clock, it's time. So when you look at my iPhone over here, I've got like 9 different times that are set up to notify me that it's time to move into this. It's time to move into this next stage of the day. So rather than the frame of this is my alarm clock jarring me to life, the first thing that comes on when I have at 4:30 a.m. 6 days a week, when this comes on, the words it says on here are, it's time. And it's got a smiley face and a heart and a couple of arrows moving up and a sun, right? It says, it's time. And the next one that comes on, it comes on half an hour later. That's about the time I'm finishing some exercise. It says, crush the day, right? And every one of these, you might call it alarm clock. I have a little framework I use for it. Rather than call it alarm clock, I call it, this is the stage of the day, and this is how I want to show up in this time, right? So
Nice.
tiny little tweak, but I think about it as, if my kids are the alarm clock, that means that they're jarring me to life. What if my kids are the signal for it's time to be loving, or a signal for it's time to model patience, or it's a signal for it's time for me to show up and give my best? Just the tiny little things we can do mindfully that can help our inner narrative. Those are the things that just get me all jacked up about helping people find joy and happiness and inner peace. It can be in some of those daily things. Like the first cup of coffee, I've seen some people, and I know my wife used to do this and I used to do this. I need that first cup of coffee before I'm awake and alive in the morning. And don't talk to me before the first cup of coffee because I'm a grumposaurus. By the way, that's a highly technical kid term for you out there.
Grumposaurus.
A
Yeah.
grumposaurus, right? Yeah. So I think about it, instead of I need that cup of coffee to come alive, instead it might be, this cup of coffee is going to flow through me and provide even more energy and more support or more love for the day, or just some framework that empowers rather than allows. So that's the way I like to think about starting the day and designing the ideal day, is the framework of everything that I intentionally put in the body or put into the mind or put into my world. It's really designed to be that ideal experience. Yeah.
I love that. I found that very helpful.
Yeah, that ties into the Miracle Morning. Back in July of 2015, my buddy Matt King and his wife Jamie, they gifted me Hal Elrod's book, The Miracle Morning, which I'm showing on screen for those who might see this on YouTube. This book, The Miracle Morning. Now, I did not know Hal Elrod at the time when I started to practice this thing. And I've since met him. We've become friends, and he's awesome. So he's very genuine. This is what I highly encourage everyone to check out, this Miracle Morning. But I remember starting to do it, Adam, and it was like a game changer. It was like a brand new lens to put over the day of, I can actually control, there's my word as a recovering perfectionist, I can control how I enter each day, and I can do consistent exercises and activities that really help me prime the day. And the Miracle Morning is great for that. And you don't have to do all of it. You can do some of it or any part of it you might want. And just think about it. What if for just 10 minutes a day, 5 or 6 days a week, you woke up and you did something that nourishes your soul? You did something that helps you in some way every day. Imagine, it's like that old adage I heard from Jim Rohn, an apple a day keeps the doctor away. It's not 365 apples on December 31st. It's not a chocolate bar a day keeps the doctor away, even though I like to eat chocolate. No, it's compounding every day. What if you spent 10 minutes on yourself, for yourself, every single morning, every day for a year? Imagine what you could accomplish. And that's like real, like envisioning or mindfulness. To me, it's taking that time every morning to pour into yourself, to pour into your own needs. It helps you get what you want. And to keep building on this idea of the Miracle Morning, there are 6 parts of it in the book. I'm not going to go through every single one of them, but you can read the book and check it out. I will share one of them. The one that really helps me, maybe it's the reason why we're doing the show together right now, is that envisioning process. One of the parts of Miracle Morning, it's SAVERS is the acronym. The V is envisioning. And ever since we met in October, almost 7 months ago, I've been envisioning or visioning, to use your term, envisioning, what a great day might look like for me today. How am I going to show up in such a way so that Julie, my wife, says, Matt, you are a great listener today? How am I going to show up today so that my kids say, Daddy loved me and he really paid a lot of attention to me today? How am I going to show up today so that my clients feel I'm fully engaged and adding value and holding them accountable for what they said they're going to do? These are questions that I literally sit here and will take about 2 minutes from each of those questions and think about and envision in my mind, who am I today that's a good listener to Julie? How am I showing up? Who am I as a good dad today? And if I don't do that, then I am in my own patterns and habits, and I go out there and I'm not always paying attention to my wife and to my kids the way that I feel I could be, right? You ever feel that way? You go to work and you crush it all day, work, you feel really successful and you feel great. You come home, it's, oh, I'm so burnt out. And I come home and my wife and kids are right here. And maybe there's a little bit of conflict. Maybe there's some yelling. And now I just worked really hard today to help provide for the family. And I come home to this and it makes me frustrated. I didn't like feeling that way. So I practice and envision how I'm going to show up when I walk into that circumstance at peace and ready to be present for them.
Yeah, I think that's great. It just brings together the questioning, right? The going to questions when we are faced with a situation, or go just in general, right? Like you're matching envisioning with questions in the Miracle Morning, right? So you're setting yourself up mindfully to ask yourself questions of how you want to show up in your day to achieve that ideal day, right? And so I think it all comes together really nicely. And I think those are very practical ways that people can set themselves up to have a great day, whether they can design their whole day or they can just intentionally ask the question and choose how they hope to show up in various moments, right? With their coworkers, with their boss, with their clients, with their family, with their friends, on the road, right?
Yep.
When someone honks at you, right? How do you want to show up? And to create some space to actually ask the question and practice it in your mind is essential to actually being ready when that situation presents itself. So I think that's a really powerful practice.
100%. I would even go so far as to give you a real life example of here's what it might look like if you are practicing it. And for the audience at home, if you're driving, then don't start writing while you're driving. If you're sitting at home, you're sitting somewhere, then maybe this is a place to grab a pen. And I'd make this note. What is it in your life that's a challenging circumstance that you can reasonably predict is going to happen again and again that we might prepare for? And I'll give you an example. I'll give you a personal and then a professional example. The personal example might be when my children are, and I love them to death, and when they're just being kids, a 6-year-old and a 4-year-old sisters, sometimes they might get into a little disagreement and they might start to elevate their voice and maybe yell at each other, and it may feel like they're going crazy at the moment. And when that happens, there was a part of me a number of years ago that would yell at them to stop yelling at each other. And that, just think about that for a second. I want them to stop yelling, so I am going to model behavior of yelling at them to stop yelling at each other. It sounds kind of ridiculous, and I've done it way too many times.
Me too.
So, we're being real transparent here. I started to ask the question of when they start to yell or when they start to trigger me, how might the ideal dad, Matt, show up next time? And this is the question. So we're talking about questions that are triggered in your mind when you have challenging circumstances come up over and over again. So when the kids start to yell, if the kids do some behavior that challenges you as a parent, the first question that comes up in my mind now, taught to me by my friend Adam, right? Another friend Adam that taught me this. It says, this Adam, he's sitting on my shoulder and he says to me, how might ideal dad Matt show up right now? That's the question that shows up in my mind when the kids start to go nuts, right? So that informs my behavior. The ideal dad Matt shows up patient, we'll call models emotional intelligence, models this cool behavior. And by the way, I'm not perfect at it and I do get frustrated and I'm just like everyone else out there. Definitely not perfect. And I've made progress on this over time by practicing this idea of asking yourself a question when you're triggered, right? So anyone at home can do that. You're prepared that when you're triggered by something, that's the kid example, right? When you're triggered by something, what's the question that might come up in your mind? When the kids are behaving in such a way that's unbelievable or challenging for me, another question that comes up in my mind, what's the worst that might happen if I don't correct this behavior right now? So as a recovering perfectionist, I want to control everything. And I definitely don't want them to disrespect dad. And then for those who can't see me, I was making some facial movements there.
There was some sarcasm.
There was a little bit of sarcasm
there was
there.
a little sarcasm there. Or
That's
maybe
right.
a lot.
Maybe a lot, yeah. Yeah, let's have fun with it. I'd love to poke fun at myself while we're going through this. That's how we learn, right? So if there's some behavior that's going on and I want to control it, I want them to stop that and learn. Is it best for me just to shut them all down and teach them that whenever you're behaving in this way, that it's not good enough or you're not enough? I'm not saying if they're running out in the road in the middle of a car, that's an instant, gotta yell, gotta stop them. That's different. Or if they steal candy from the grocery store line, that's different. We've got to correct that behavior immediately. And if they're doing something like they're standing up at dinner rather than sitting down at the table and they're going off and bouncing off the walls, it's served me better to teach and coach and develop them by yelling at them. In my mind, it does not anymore. So now, what's the worst that might happen if I don't correct that behavior? And I let them use some of that leash to test their boundaries and to see what happens. And they learn from that. And some of you might be thinking, well, they're learning that I can walk all over dad. In some cases, I got to know what's okay and what's not okay. There are some clear boundaries. But I'd say just being able to see and identify your triggers and have a question in there. That is the essence of what we're talking about, is what's the tripwire to the question. Adam, these are a couple of examples if the kids trigger you, and we both have young kids, so that's why I talked about it. I'd love to share an example if it's something like in your business. If a coworker, and it can be a boss of yours, it can be an employee of yours, a peer of yours, just if a coworker does something that annoys you or just gets under your skin or frustrates you, how do you respond to that? This happened recently, and when I was coaching someone, when they got an email that triggered them, made them feel really defensive and judged and had to defend themselves. So what do? They fire back instantly, reply all. It's not done that way. The expectation was set. You're wrong. It was pretty much all the do's and don'ts. They did all the don'ts in that email. And I would coach them to do this. And I did coach them to do this. When you get triggered by someone that sounds pretty judgy or makes you defensive in an email, the first thing I might encourage you to do is ask yourself, how might I be benefiting myself by responding in an aggressive tone right now? And there's not really many benefits if you respond back in a reply all email corporate America, if you go right at it right away, reply all to everyone. So the question is, how might by sitting on this for a little while and going and talking to the person be a better solution than firing off an immediate email? That might be the trigger for the question you might ask if you get a bad email. Or if someone owes you something, they owe you a follow-up, they owe you as the leader, they owe some accountability and they don't do it. A lot of leaders, the first thought is, hey, where is this? You didn't get this on time. You're fired. Or what the heck is wrong with you? Why can't you be counted on to do this? They fire off in some way like that. And my feedback might be, if someone doesn't meet the expectation that you set with them, then how might I use this as a learning opportunity to enhance and improve my leadership skill? So I asked how to make it better at this. I just coached a team of 17 that leads an organization of a couple thousand. I'm coaching the 17 leaders this past week on this exact subject. And many of them just get straight into defensive mode and just start poking, prodding, challenging everyone. And they don't get to the heart of why the person was upset or why the person was behind and really support them through it and help them learn from it. I'll extract out of the weeds for a second here just to share that when you get triggered, if you know what your triggers are and you can reasonably predict they're going to happen again and again, then how might you tripwire your thinking and set a tripwire in there that causes you to ask a question that can serve you? That's the thought.
Yeah. No, that makes a lot of sense. And I think most people can relate to those examples, right? Where somebody sends you an email that upsets you. I learned that lesson the hard way a long time ago. And if any email that triggers me, I just close it and I walk away and I answer it later. Or even better, go have a conversation with the person.
Yes.
But yeah, like that is a well-worn tripwire for me where it's up, that email's pissing me off. That means I need to go. I need to go for a walk. I need to close it. There's no chance I'm responding to that right now. And it has served me very well because I learned the hard way. Like you said, ask the question, what good could come of responding to this now? And how might I benefit from taking a break before I respond to this? How might that result in a better outcome?
Yeah, I like it. And I like the way that you just work through it. And I think that there is some learning lesson in working it out, especially working out real time live. I go so far when I'm with coaching clients, when I'm with my own team, when I'm in front of a team, when I'm coaching the entire team or facilitating in a group setting of 50 or 100 or a few hundred. If I make a mistake, as a recovering perfectionist, I would say that this used to eat me up. I used to get stressed out about it. And now it's, man, how might this actually be here in the moment to teach me something? So if it's not perfect, I'm more okay with it now than ever before because I practiced through this envisioning technique, being prepared. What happens if I'm on stage and I forget what to say? How might I use that as a learning moment and teaching moment for the audience and the crowd? So if I forget what I'm saying in a speech, which I did a few years ago, I'm speaking at a real estate conference here in Charlotte, North Carolina, where I live. There's 125 people at this luncheon, and I'm 2 minutes and 47 seconds into a speech, and I plan like the first 60 seconds of every speech. So I knew where to start. I'm about 2 minutes and 47 seconds in, and Adam, dude, I totally stuttered. I lost my train of thought. I was trying to say James Clear's Atomic Habits book, The Aggregation of Marginal Gains.
Right.
In chapter 1, I was trying to tell that story. And I just blah, blah, blah came out of my mouth for 5 seconds. Couldn't put those words together. So I had a deer in headlights moment. I literally lost my train of thought, got totally uncomfortable in front of everyone. And because I'd been envisioning this and practicing this, in that 3 to 5 seconds of blah, 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 which then led to about 3 to 5 seconds of silence, the tripwire question that came up was, how might I actually enjoy this moment and learn from it? Rather than freak out, how might I enjoy this and learn from it? So I remember that 3 to 4 seconds of forgetting what I was going to say in the speech. I looked around at everybody and I said, holy cow, this is what it's like as a professional speaker to forget where you were in your talk. Soak it in, everyone. This is what it's like. Okay, let's move on now. All right. And that was it. That was pretty much one of several responses. If I lose where I am in my speech, then I just keep going. But that was the 3 to 5 seconds of the question in my mind and what I said out loud. And that's okay. I want them to know that I'm human and fallible and make mistakes and imperfect. And yeah. Anyways, thanks for letting me share that story.
Sure. No, it's great. Yeah. It speaks to how these questions can serve us. What I'm picking up on throughout everything you're saying is that all of these moments, every moment potentially, probably, is a chance to learn and grow and improve ourselves. And so that's what I'm hearing in all of your examples. And asking questions in those moments is the gateway to get that growth, get those learnings.
Absolutely. A good resource for this, for the listeners out there who want to go a little bit deeper and work on their game. I learned a lot from a book written by Mary Lee Clark. The name of the book is Change Your Question, Change Your Life. For most of my coaching clients, at some point we engage in an exercise with that book. And the theme of that book is around the idea of your internal navigation system. Is it set to be a judge or is it set to learn? Are you a judger or a learner? Judgers think in terms of statements, right? Learners think in terms of questions. So I've worked on this over the years to change the internal dialogue to become one of a question. So you gave an example earlier of what if someone cut you off in traffic? A good example might be, man, that person's a jerk. Man, that person's a horrible driver. Man, they know what they're doing. That's the judger. The learner is, man, that person over there, I wonder what's happening in their day to cause them to do that. What's happening in their world that causes them to cut others off and drive erratically and aggressively. So I like to ask questions instead of make the statement, because that puts me in the learning mode to see things through the lens of other people. And that's a far more powerful and inner peace driving mode than one who's always judging and controlling. All right. So that might be one thought to what we said earlier. So to keep moving forward, I want to go back to one other thing you shared earlier, Adam. We talked about design the ideal day was one thought. And the second thought you had earlier was making that switch, going from the end of your workday into the family world. I might call this compartmentalizing your workday, right? So if you go back and think about, some people have a real difficult time. In fact, most people have a really hard time with switching from work mode to family mode, and having that balance, that harmony in between. And I remember I struggled with this for the longest time. It's always empty tank at the end of the day for the person I'm in a relationship with, or even my kids. So how do you do that? There's a couple of things I'd encourage people. Here's a couple of tactics that you might be able to use right away, team. It'll help you to compartmentalize your work. One thing, it's going to cost you $11 to do this. And it's so worth it. And it's so funny. Those of you on YouTube can see, I've just picked up what I call the cell phone jail. At the end of the day, whenever I finish work.
I was wondering what that was back then.
Oh, I pulled it out, man. I pulled it out for a reason, because this little plastic $11 cell phone jail is the funniest, most ridiculous thing in the world. And every one of my clients gets one when we start working together, because this is one where if your trigger or your barrier to being present with your spouse or being present with your kids, if it's your mobile device, which it is for a lot of us, and I'm very guilty of this, which is why I have this. Whenever I finish up work, and normally I finish up work at the exact same time, because there is a signaler on my phone. Remember, not an alarm. There is a signaler that signals it's time to be the best dad I can be and the most present husband I can be. So when I get that signal from my phone at 5:01 p.m. Eastern on Monday through Thursday, I then take my phone and I open up this little cell phone jail, and I put my phone in the jail, and it stays in there till at least 7:30 p.m. because my kids go down at 7, and I'm free by 7:15 to 7:30 to hang out with my wife. But then it's not present. Phone is not present when the kids after work. That's one way to compartmentalize, is to remove the distractions, remove the things that trigger you. And I know that a text message will trigger me. Email is not so much anymore, but a text message will trigger me to pick up my phone, look at it, respond, and not be present with the kids. So that's one thing, is to put that phone on ice in a cell phone jail. A second thing, an even more powerful thing, when we meet face to face in person, you're going to notice this right away. Everyone does. They always comment on it. That in my front left pocket of my clothes, there is a bulge. Now, hey, guess what, friends? Keep your mind out of the gutter. The bulge is this thing I'm showing you on the screen right now. It is a little squeeze ball of a smiley face. Okay. And I always have it on me, except for in the shower. This squeeze ball right here is how I compartmentalize from section to section in the day. And the way I do it is that anytime I'm getting ready to switch from this podcast to the next exercise, or a coaching call, to practicing my golf game, or time with my wife, Julie, to time with the family, anytime I'm switching kind of mindset or switching the frame, I'll grab this little smiley face squeeze ball. And I learned this from Tony Robbins. I'll call this my emotional anchor. And it anchors me from place to place. So I'll give it a squeeze. I'll take a deep breath and I'll give myself permission to move that next place in the day. So at 5:01 on most regular days during the week, at 5:01, I'll grab this, take a deep breath, pause, and give myself permission to move that next part of the day. And I used to have to put the cell phone in jail to get away from the phone. Now I do it instinctually, so I'm just away from the phone. I've got this little squeeze ball. It gives me permission to move to the next part. And when I do, I tell myself, you know what, Matt, it's time to let go of that part of the day and move on to the next part of the day. And that's how I go from each part of the day to each part of the day. And it takes a lot of practice and it's very challenging. And the benefit of that is that I don't have like emotional hangover from work to playtime and hangout time with kids. I'm not carrying the heaviness of, I still have 52 emails in the box I didn't touch yet. And I give myself permission to let those things go. They're going to be there tomorrow. They may still be there a couple of days from now. And if I don't ever respond to them, guess what? If they're that important, the people will follow up again anyways. But I give myself permission to let go from activity to activity. What do you think about that? How does that connect with you, Adam?
I really like the idea of the different times of the day. I'm actually curious, like you said, you have 9 signals on your phone. Curious what those are.
Good. Share with you. I've got them right here, and not everyone's going to be able to see these, but I'll pull up and show them to you. Here we go right here. I'll just pull up on my document camera so you can see them, but I'll describe to the audience. So the first one is at 4:30 a.m., and that's called It's Time. Every day, it's time. I got a couple of emojis in there. And then the next one is 5 a.m. It's called Crush the Day. And that goes off in normally about half an hour into the day, and it's exercises wrapping up. The next one is 5:30 a.m. 5:30 a.m. So I've done the Miracle Morning for an hour. At 5:30, I unload the dishes and I make the lunches and I get ready to make breakfast. So that's be the best dad now every day. I'm awaiting the kids to come in. 6:50 is always an active alarm, or pardon me. Actually, this one kind of is an alarm. This jars me out of complete playtime and fun time with the kids. And it brings me to, you know what? Now, this is a signal it's time to get to work, because at 7 a.m. is when I do my live stream every day on my social media accounts. 10:33 is text my wife. I'm very intentional that I have these certain times throughout the course of the day that I send my wife just funny shit, man. Like literally, I will send her the most outrageous memes and GIFs that I can find. And I will send them to her at 10:33, 1:02. Here's 3:45, 5:01. Here it comes again. 5:01. That's the time. Be the best role I could possibly be as a husband and a father. Look at this. 7:15. I got Julie, quality time. I got a little eggplant and donut. Use your imagination, people. That's a joke, but at the same time, it's quality time with my lady. So it's time for us to hang out. And then from there at 7:59, I put down tea time. And the tea time is when I literally boil some tea and have some tea at the end of the day to decompress and start to go into wind down mode. But those are my alarms / I call them signals on my phone that signal me to go from each step of the day to the next one.
Got it.
That's what it looks like.
Very cool. I appreciate you walking through that. So let's switch gears a little bit. I want to talk. We talked a lot about kind of thinking about better questions and setting yourself up for the day by approaching the first 10 minutes, even the first minute or two mindfully, moving into the Miracle Morning approach, which I highly recommend people check out that book, get it and implement it in your life in whatever way makes sense. But all of these things I think of as investments in yourself. You talked about the 10 minutes day investing in yourself. You didn't use the word investing, but it is investing, right? And there's a compounding effect of that. How do you think about investing in yourself more broadly?
Good question. I like to think of myself, and when it comes to the subject of investing in yourself, I think of it in terms of these buckets. In one bucket, these are the most important buckets for me. I've got my business, my wife, my children. I've got as a human and me. Those are 5 buckets. All right. So specifically investing in yourself, investing in you, me, right? This is how I invest in me. Every single day, I hit 50 putts. Yeah, I'm a golfer. I hit 50 putts. I invest quality time into things that I really give me energy that I enjoy. I love to play golf. I'm playing golf today in about 3 hours from now. Cannot wait to do it. Love to do it. That's how I invest in me, is find things that give me energy. For example, you and I are in a mastermind class together. That gives me a lot of energy to be learning something. So I invest in myself. I'm in 5 mastermind groups. Like, wait a second, that's a lot of stuff, Matt. How do you find time for all that? Those are the things that are for me. I make time for my children every day. I've got at least 4 hours every day that are uninterrupted with my children. I've got at least 3 hours every day that are uninterrupted with my wife, right? So for the rest of the time in there, I've got at least 90 minutes every day just for me. And I take on Fridays, I do a lot of investing in me too. So it's with my mastermind group. So of course, one of them is with Dustin Riekman's Profit Podcast Accelerator, working on how to be a great podcast guest. Hopefully we're showing up today. Your listeners will be the judge of that, or the learner of
I think
that.
you're doing great.
Front Row Dads is another mastermind I'm in to be the best family man with a business that I can be. I'm in another group called Tribe of Investors, investing in myself to learn the tips and tools and strategies for being a great investor, right? So these are 3 of the main groups I'm in. I've created my own masterminds, going live here in about 5 months from right now today. So excited about that. I make time to read every day. So these are things. And by the way, if anyone's like, Matt, that's overwhelming, that's a lot of stuff. It's not quite as overwhelming as it might sound when you really take a hard look at your priorities and you design, this is the way that I'd like it to look. And what I'm describing right now today was not the way that it was 8 years ago, 6 years ago, even 1 year ago. It takes time, discipline, practice, and the benefits are outright amazing. And with investing in yourself, I'll give you one thought around financial independence. And when it comes to business and making money, I think this can be helpful to people. There is such a culture in America now to keep up with the Joneses, to have this glamorous life and share it on all your social media accounts. I think about financial independence as being free from a lot of extra wants. If you want to be financially independent, one way to do it is make a lot of money. Another way to do it, simply to want less and be really comfortable and present with what you have. So to circle it back to what you described in the beginning, is that you're doing well financially, you're living below your means. You are doing well. You personally, you're doing well at that. I'm doing well at that. The old thinking of, I need to achieve, I need to accomplish, I need to get more and more, that may not be serving me at the age of 46 the same way that it was serving me when I was single at 27. So I believe now, how do I get to a place where I'm totally comfortable, happy, satisfied, and happy, like internally happy with myself and my circumstance, so I can be present with my family and be present with people I love the most. And my conclusion just keeps coming back to be happy with less, want less, and I'll be happy. So that's part of the financial independence puzzle for me, is wanting less, being happy with it. So that's a thought about how I invest in me with masterminds and working on wanting less and being really present. Those are some thoughts.
Very cool. Very cool. I like that. I've heard that idea of intentionally wanting less. But the way I've thought about it is just realizing that everything I want, I already have. And so that's a flip of it, but it makes a lot of sense. All right, let's shift gears now, Matt, into what I call the Mindful Fire Final Four. Are you ready?
Oh, yeah, baby, let's do it.
All right. So the first question is about envisioning. I'd love to hear a quick story about something that you envisioned happening in your life. Maybe it seemed impossible or improbable at first, but how you made it happen using the power of your predictive mind.
I got a story for you here. The first thing that comes to mind is back in 2015, I had a bad accident out of my control. I was going down a zip line and it broke. Like the worst possible thing that could have happened, go down a zip line, carefree. This is fun. I've been down like 50 zip lines in my life. The one I was down at that time, it broke. And I share the story because it led me to a place that terrified the heck out of me. I was in a really challenging place where my back was messed up. When I hit the ground, I saw stars and I turned into a question mark. My back was messed up. I'm glad I'm alive. So I got really messed up in that accident. And
Just fell out of the sky,
yeah, just
hit
fell.
the ground.
Just fell and hit the ground, landed on my butt bone, and
Did the harness break or did the wire break?
No. What was interesting about it is that I've been down this zip line, this exact zip line, probably like 30, been down a lot.
Wow.
And the line itself didn't break and the harness didn't break. The way that it was set up, though, was there's a handle up there and the handle broke. The handle broke. And I'm strong enough in my hands, at least, that I'm not going to be dropped from it. And it's not like 300 feet up in a Costa Rican jungle. I say only with a grain of salt, I'm only 25 feet above the ground. And my feet are like, by the time I was falling, I'm probably about 12 to 13 feet above the actual ground when it broke. Still, right. At the time, I was a 250-pound man at 40 some odd years of age. And it was catastrophic what happened to my body.
Yeah.
But the reason I share the story is because it led me to a place a couple months later where I had to have, for the first time in my life, an MRI. And if anyone here has ever had an MRI and has a claustrophobia, this is actually a very challenging place to be because they load you up in this tube, in this machine. Then once you're laying down in the machine, you're laying there just in your t-shirt, your shorts, and your underwear or whatever. You're laying there and they push the button and they insert you laying flat into a machine and you cannot move in this machine. And it starts to get hot and loud sounds are hitting you from every direction. And it can be quite terrifying. I didn't know about this because I never had one. But people that, when I told them I was getting one, they told me stories about how they couldn't take it. They had to be pulled in and out of it and they could never finish the MRI. So I was actually maybe a little bit intimidated by this going in. Here's where the envisioning came in. That I knew that if I were to go in this MRI machine, Adam, and open my eyes, I was done for. I was going to probably freak out in my head. Because I don't like to be confined in a small spot. I'm a big boy. I'm 6'6". So I was about 250 at the time. And I didn't want that. So they put me in the MRI and I decided that I was going to envision myself playing a round of golf. My eyes was going to stay closed. I was going to play a round of golf in that MRI machine. I was going to be in there for about 45 minutes. So I went to the course that I play in my mind a bunch. That was Charlotte National Golf Course, local course in town. And I played the round of my life. I think I birdied and eagled every hole, shot like under par everywhere. It was great. Yeah, why not? So I envisioned that. Okay. Long story short, I go forward in time. And once all the back stuff was resolved, and by the way, it ended up in a spinal surgery, which I survived and came out of. And thank God I was able to walk again because I ended up in a wheelchair for some time and it was disabled. Couldn't do much of anything that I was used to doing. But past all of that is where the envisioning came back. My first round of golf back after the surgery and after all of this, I played that golf course that I envisioned in that MRI machine. And I shot one of the lowest scores of my life. I shot a 64. And at that golf course, that happens to be 7 under par. I hadn't shot 7 under par in years. And I used to play pro golf. I haven't shot that but 2 times my whole life. My first round back after all of this stuff, I hadn't swung a club in a long time. I shot a 64, almost exactly the way that I had envisioned there because my mind was free and clear of it. So the envisioning process, when I needed to really hope and focus on what was in my mind, I did. And I just kept thinking about it and I kept envisioning it. And before you know it, it happened. Like almost a year and a half later after the accident, I was back playing golf again. And yeah, that was 7 years ago, almost today. Wow. 7 years ago that I had the surgery. So anyways, that was the example of envisioning.
Yeah, pretty powerful stuff on all accounts. Gotta ask, have you been on a zip line since or are you done with zip lines?
I don't like
done with zip lines.
Yeah, man. I don't like to say the word never. I'm pretty confident, comfortable that the word never is in play here. I don't think I'm ever going on a zip line again.
You're good. You've done enough zip lines.
I'm good, man. I've done a zip
50,
line.
50 zip lines is enough zip lines.
Yeah, man, I'm good. I'm good. Thank you. Thank you for offering. I'm good.
It's good to confirm. All right, Matt, what piece of advice would you give to someone early on their path to financial independence?
I'd use a quote that I heard one time, and it would be slow is smooth and smooth is fast, because it doesn't seem like it all adds up. I can assure you, compound interest adds up. And I didn't get that in my early 20s when I was spending everything. But since about 15 years ago, I've been saving. And on the quest of financial independence, I'll give you the basic advice, which is to save 10 or 15% of everything that you earn and then live from what's left over. That's the basic advice. Now, that's 101 advice that most people don't even take that advice. No judgment if you don't, by the way, anyone out there. It's an opportunity to try that. That's what my dad did. And he was never the highest paid person and never rich financially, to the best of my knowledge. And he saved 10% of everything he earned. And by the time he died, he died this week, 18 years ago on Memorial Day. 18 years ago, he died. And come to find out, I didn't know this at the time, but he had saved quite an amount because of saving 10% of everything. So that's financial piece number one, is level 101. I'd say the higher level financial advice is get yourself around people that have money, that have financial wisdom to share, because every person out there who's broke or living check to check, they have financial advice to give. And I'm not judging them from them sharing advice. I'm simply sharing that take with a grain of salt people who offer advice who don't have the thing that you're wanting advice for.
That's a good point and can be applied to everything, right? If you're getting advice from somebody about something that you want that they don't have, you should probably question that advice. So it's a good point. All right. The third question is, what piece of advice would you give to someone getting started with meditation and or mindfulness?
And I did it 5 times, 20s and my early 30s. I didn't get any perceived benefit from it the first 5 times I tried it, Adam. So I would say that if you're going to do it, then stick with it. Give yourself a 90-day window. Yeah, 90. Why 90? I found that the 6th time I tried meditation, 6th time, like all the most successful people that were inner peace and that were financially successful. And if you even go to Tim Ferriss's book, Tools of Titans, where he interviewed like several hundred billionaires and famous people and people that are like the iconic names out there in all these different industries, 80% of them have a daily meditation practice of some kind. Right? So my advice is, if you're going to do it, then stick with it. Do it intentionally. Right? Stick with it and do it intentionally. And I believe you'll be able to succeed doing it. If I had to give you a resource, I happen to have one right here at my hand. There is a woman named Tara Brach, and she is the voice, at least she was the voice of the Calm app on your phone, which you can use for free. She's that meditation voice. And this is the first person I started to meditate to her voice and her meditations. Now I still do it every day. I do it with the Peloton app.
Yeah.
So that's it.
Very
Stick with
good.
it.
All right. And Matt, the last question is, how can people connect with you online and learn more about what you offer and what you're up to?
Great question. Thanks so much, Adam. I'd say a couple things. First, you can go to any of the big social media places, LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram. Just check out Eternal Optimist Podcast, Matt Drinkhahn. I'm at all those. But here is the call to action I'm really excited about, is that I've created this masterclass around sales. And it's something along the idea of getting clients at will. So if you're someone out there that you're working on your business to grow it, to evolve it, and there's stress, there's anxiety, there's overwhelm around, man, how am I going to get clients? How am I going to keep clients? I've got a masterclass that I'm teaching around how to get those clients from the moment that you meet them, the conversations you have to walk them on the path to get them to become a client, then onboarding them. That specific phase of getting clients at will, That's what I'm going to teach people. And if you're interested in that class, then feel free to reach out to me at Matt Drinkhahn at any of those different places that I've mentioned. And if you do reach out and you mention this podcast, the Mindful Fire Podcast with Adam, you do that, then there are going to be a couple of free resources I send your way right away. So reach out to me right away, mention this podcast, mention the masterclass, and I will send you free resources on your path to achieving what you want in your business. So yeah, thanks for asking, man.
Got it, man. Thank you so much for being here and sharing your wisdom with the audience.
Pleasure, my friend. Real pleasure. Thank you.
Sure. Thanks for joining me on today's episode of the Mindful Fire Podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, I invite you to hit subscribe wherever you're listening to this. This just lets the platforms know you're getting value from the episodes and you want to be here when I release additional content. If you're ready to start your Mindful Fire journey, go to mindfulfire.org/start and download my free envisioning guide. In just 10 minutes, this guide will help you craft a clear and inspiring vision for your life. Again, you can download it for free at mindfulfire.org/start. Thanks again, and I'll catch you next time on the Mindful Fire Podcast.